Hi there, welcome to That Board Game Show. My name is James Wood, and today I'm going to show you The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring trick-taking game. A cooperative quest through Middle-earth, designed by Bryan Bornmueller, with art and illustration by Elaine Ryan and Samuel Shimota, and published by Office Dog. As the name would suggest, this is a cooperative trick-taking game. Now, if you're not familiar with the concept of trick-taking, I will be demonstrating that fairly shortly, as I believe that is the best way to explain how a trick-taking game works, is to simply show you the game in action. But before we get to that, I just want to say a few things about this particular game. Being a cooperative trick-taking game is fairly unique. Most trick-taking games are typically competitive, and they typically don't support lower player counts. They're very often 4 or more players. Now this game, on the other hand, plays from 1 to 4 players. So today I'm going to be showing you the solo mode, and there's also a 2-player variant, which I have not experienced myself yet. I have yet to play that. I have only played this with 4 players and solo. So I will be showing you the solo mode today because I'm here solo, and I think it's nice to demonstrate this fairly unique element of this particular game, as well as the fact that it gives you a pretty good feel for how a 4-player game would work. So with that said, I'm just going to dive in and start playing and show you how the game works as we go. This game is kind of a campaign game in a sense, in that you're going to be playing it over 18 chapters. The first chapter is a fairly simple trick-taking game, and then each chapter that you play will be unlocking new cards, new characters, new objectives, etc., and giving you different things to focus on each time you play it. So it really evolves and grows very interestingly. And on that, I just have to show you the very clever box that the game comes in, where you have this handy little tab here to pull out the deck of cards that's sitting in there. You can see here, this is the setup card for the 2-player game, which is rather handy. So that shows you how you're going to be setting up. Basically, when you're playing a 2-player game, you have 2 players, each controlling their own hand of cards, and then you have a 3rd dummy player set up off to the side with the cards laid out in that particular configuration. But I'm getting distracted. That's not what we're showing you today. We are showing you the solo mode and the very clever box. So as you can see here, we have taken all of the cards that are currently on the table out of this first compartment. And then once we've played chapter 1, which is what I will be demonstrating today, you'll open this little compartment here, which says no admittance except on party business. Proceed here after chapter 1. So once you have finished chapter 1, you may open up that box and it will reveal new cards and new things for you to do. And then part 2 is unlocked after you have completed chapter 12. So I just wanted to show that very clever little box design. And now let's dive in with chapter 1. So we shall read our chapter 1 card over here. When Mr. Bilbo Baggins of Bag End announced that he would shortly be celebrating his 11th birthday with a party of special magnificence, there was much talk and excitement in Hobbiton. We then flip over the card and it gives us some setup instructions. Chapter 1, a long-expected party. Characters we will be using are Frodo, Gandalf, Pippin, and Bilbo. And anytime you see a little star asterisk next to their name, you take one of these tokens and place it next to that character, indicating that those characters must be chosen in the current game. Now, playing with 4 characters, the solo mode, I will be selecting all 4 of them. But if I were either playing with 3 players, or if we had more characters available to us, there's a possibility that you won't select all the characters that are available. And that's what the little stars are to help you remember, that these 2 characters, Frodo and Bilbo, must be selected for this first chapter. And we are told our victory condition here, this is a short game, and we must finish all chosen characters. And each character, you will see, has a special win condition. In the case of Frodo, he needs to win 4 or more ring cards, and that is on his 3-player side, which is what we use for the solo game. He also has a 4-player side. He also has some special setup instructions, and I'll explain those momentarily. And before I spend more time explaining all of the cards and their various win conditions, I'm going to finish the final steps of setup and just start playing, and you will literally see the game in action and it will all make sense as we go. So when setting up for a solo game, you'll see I have dealt out these cards over here. I have this 1 ring card dealt face up, and now I'm just going to flip all of these face up, because when you are playing solo, you deal 4 cards into 4 separate face up piles. So let's reveal all of these. And this is how you would actually be setting up the game for a solo game. The last thing we do is we take 1 card from the deck, we deal it face up by the chapter card, and this is referred to as the lost card. The next thing we do is we give the hand that contains the 1 ring card to the Frodo character. So Frodo is going to come over here and lay claim to this hand of cards. He also gets this ring token, and we can set that off to the side for now. And then, going left around the table from Frodo, we need to assign one of these characters to each of these 3 hands. And how I'm going to decide how to do that is based on their win conditions. So we will now look at this hand of cards over here. We'll see we've got a 7 of hills, a 7 of forests, a 3 of mountains, and a 3 of rings. And we have a handy player reference card that tells us what the distribution of numbers are for each suit. So the hills, the mountains, the forests, and the shadows are all numbered 1 through 8. The rings are numbered 1 through 5. And then we are reminded here of a couple minor rules, but I'm not going to explain those just yet because, again, they'll make more sense while I'm playing. So looking at this hand of cards over here, basically the core concept of a trick-taking game is that each turn, every player at the table is going to play 1 card. The highest card in that suit is going to win it. So if you've got a 7 of hills and a 7 of forests, you're very likely to win the forest or the hill suit in any given hand. With that information, seeing that there's 2 high cards and 2 low cards in this hand, I can look at my characters and I can see that Bilbo over here has a win condition of win 3 or more tricks. So starting with 2 high cards, he's pretty likely to do that. So I shall assign Bilbo to this hand of cards over here, and we can remove that. And these 2 tokens are extras in case you are playing with more characters later in the game, in later chapters. Then we can look at this hand over here, and we can see that we've got a 2, a 1, a 5, and a 3. So those are mostly low numbers, which will be good for Pippin's win condition, which is to win the fewest tricks, or to tie for the fewest. He's happy if he can win no tricks, because he is a fool of a took. So we shall assign the fool of a took the terrible hand of cards, which means whether we want to or not, we are giving this hand of cards over here to Gandalf the Grey Wizard, who only needs to win 1 or more tricks. So he's fairly easy to do. Now, that is when you're playing the solo game. If you are playing a multiplayer game, how this would work is you would deal out this entire deck of cards to the table. So let's say you're playing 4 players. This deck will be dealt into 4 equal hands, and each player will be holding a quarter of the deck. Then, whichever player has the 1 ring card in their hand will take the Frodo character, and then going left around the table from that player, each player will select a character based on the cards they have in hand, just like I have done here. So now that we have assigned the hands to the different characters, we will start with the character to the left of Frodo. So we're just going to be going clockwise around like this. And we'll look at Bilbo here, and we will see where this little hammer symbol is. It says none. That is his setup condition. So Bilbo doesn't do any special setup conditions. So he can just stay over there. Pippin over here has this setup condition, which is to exchange with Frodo, Sam, or Merry. Now, you'll see that we do not have Sam or Mary on the table here. That is because they will appear later in the game. So we will now do Pippin's setup instructions. But before we do those, I just want to show you Gandalf's setup instructions, which are to add the lost card to your hand. So Gandalf will get this card that we set aside earlier, basically meaning Gandalf will have a hand of 5 cards, and he can exchange with Frodo. Now, exchange means that you can swap one card that you have with that player. Basically, again, in a multiplayer game, if I was playing Pippin and I wanted to exchange with Frodo, I would choose one of the cards in my hand, and I'd give it face down to Frodo. Frodo will then take that card into his hand and give Pippin a card back. He can give back the card that he was given, or he can give Pippin another card. As an example, Pippin probably wants to get rid of this 5 because he doesn't want to be winning tricks. So he could give Frodo the 5, and Frodo could give Pippin back this 1. Now, one unique rule of the solo mode is that you can only do one exchange per round. So basically what that means is with Pippin and Gandalf here, they can't both do their exchange setup condition. I can only exchange with one of them. So now, we skip over Bilbo because he has no special setup rules. Now we'll come to Pippin and we'll decide if we want him to exchange or if we think it's better for Gandalf to exchange with Frodo. And looking at the table, I think Pippin is actually quite safe with this 5 of hills over here because Bilbo over here has the 7 of hills. So I am rather going to skip over Pippin's setup rule and I'm going to skip to Gandalf. Gandalf will get the 5 of hills added to his hand and he can exchange with Frodo. So what is he going to give to Frodo? Frodo needs to win 4 or more ring cards, so Frodo needs high cards, pretty importantly. So I think Gandalf is going to give Frodo this 5 of mountains, and Frodo, knowing that Gandalf has these other high cards, is going to give him this 1 of mountains in exchange. So basically, where the trickiness of this kind of game comes in a multiplayer game, is that you cannot communicate when playing multiplayer. So when you're playing 4 players, I would have these 4 cards in my hand. Well, I'd have more than 4 because I'd have a quarter of the deck in my hand. And these cards would be secretly in my hand. I'm not allowed to tell anyone what cards I have. But one thing that can happen is you'll see that you get a little bit of information with each decision you make. For instance, the player who has the 1 ring card must take Frodo. So now, when you're playing multiplayer, whoever takes Frodo, everyone knows that they have the 1 ring. And then, if somebody were to choose Pippin, basically what they're telling the table is, I have low cards. You're saying, I don't think I have a very good hand, I don't have a lot of high numbers. If you were to take Bilbo, you're communicating that you have high numbers. But you're not allowed to ever explicitly say what cards you have and what numbers you have. And how that is simulated in this solo game is by only dealing out 4 cards to each character and having the rest of the cards in the deck. So this here is my limited information. Because of the fact that I can see all 4 hands on the table, I know what every character has. But I don't know what every character is going to be getting as the game progresses. This will all become abundantly clear as we play. So, with that said, let's start playing. And Frodo will lead the first trick. Now, what leading the first trick means is to pick one of the cards in your hand and play it to the center of the table. So, Frodo is going to, with looking at the table out here, he knows that Bilbo needs to win tricks. So he is going to set up for Bilbo to win a trick. He is going to play this 5 into the middle of the table. Then Bilbo is going to say, thank you very much, and he's going to play this 7 of forests into the table. And the reason he played that is because this is what's referred to as a must-follow trick-taking game, meaning that whoever leads the trick determines what suit is going to be played that turn. If you have that suit in hand, you must follow with it. So you must play your forest card if you have one. Now, we'll see over here that Pippin does not have a forest card, which means he can play offsuit and he can play any card that he wants. So he can get rid of this 5 of hills. And that is the only way at the start of the game that you can play a ring card. So you'll see that Frodo here needs to win the ring cards, and he starts with the 1 ring. Now, there's a couple unique things about the 1 ring. First, at the beginning of the game, you cannot lead with ring cards until a ring card has been played in a subsequent hand. Basically, somebody has to be able to play off suit. They have to not have the suit that you've played, at which point, if they have a ring card, they can choose to play it. After that first card has been played, we then flip this token over, and then you can lead tricks with rings. Now, the unique thing about this 1 ring over here is that it is what's referred to as a trump card. Now, in trick-taking games, you'll very often have a trump suit, or you'll have several trump cards. In this game, we only have the 1 ring trump card. And what trump card means is when you play the 1 ring, it can trump every card that's being played and win the trick. Or, another unique thing with this game is you can choose to not win the trick with the 1 as well. So if you're in a position where you're forced to play the 1 of rings, you do not have to win the trick if you're Frodo and you've already met your win condition. Because, as we were told on our reference card, the ring cards are numbered 1 through 5. So there are 5 ring cards in the deck. At the moment, we only have 2 of them on the table. Let's continue playing. We come to Gandalf needs to play a card now. Again, he can play offsuit. So he is going to play one of these low cards. Let's play this 1 of mountains. So now, whoever played the highest card, in this case the 7 of forests, was played by Bilbo, wins that trick. So we take those cards and we place them face down next to Bilbo. Now, Bilbo has just won a trick, so he will lead the next trick. But first, we will deal a new card face up to every character. Ooh, that's jolly good. Now Frodo has the 5 of rings and the 1 of rings, so those are both likely to help him win the ring cards he needs. But he can't lead with those, so even if he was leading now, he couldn't play either of those until somebody plays a ring card later in the game. So now Bilbo is going to lead, and he needs to win lots of tricks, so he is going to lead with this 8 of shadows, and Pippin has to play a shadow card, so he will play the 2 of shadows. Gandalf will play the 6 of shadows, or the 7. No, let's have him play the 7. We'll have him play the 7 of shadows, and now we know that the 6 of shadows is the highest shadow card left to be played. And now Frodo does not have any shadow cards. So what Frodo could do is he could now play the 1 ring, because he can now play it as an offsuit, and he could say that he's going to trump this hand and win the trick with the 1 ring. But right now, I don't know if that's a smart thing for him to do. We would rather let Bilbo win this trick. So that means that Frodo is going to play this 5 of mountains over here, which means Bilbo will win another trick. So he has now won 2 of the 3 tricks he needs to win. We will deal a new card to each character. And play will continue. And Frodo just keeps getting all the rings. Now, that's not necessarily a good thing, because Frodo having the 2 of rings is not great. We want someone else to have the 2 of rings because Frodo needs to win the 2 of rings. That could prove problematic later. But fortunately, there are 5 ring cards, and we've only got 4 of them currently on the table. So I think what we're going to do, I have a plan. Bilbo is going to play the 7 of hills. Then Pippin is going to play the 4 of hills, because he has to. Then, do we want Gandalf to win that? I don't think so. So we'll have Gandalf play the 4 of hills. And now, Frodo is going to play this 2 of rings over here. And yes, I do know that it is thematically incongruous that there are 5 1 rings. But they had to make it work mechanically somehow. Although, there should be 7 rings, because then they would represent the 7 rings for the Dwarf Lords. But oh well, I digress. So, Frodo has now played out a ring card, but it was in a hand that Bilbo started with a 7 of hills. So Bilbo is going to win that trick. But now we can flip over this token, because we have now unlocked the ability to lead with rings. So let's deal out all the cards. We have 2 of forest over there, 6 of mountains, 3 of shadow, and a 5 of shadow. We're going to have Bilbo lead with this 3 of rings because we've now unlocked them. Pippin is going to get rid of this high card because he doesn't have any rings, so he can play any suit. Gandalf is going to get rid of... he's going to get rid of a low card because he still needs to win a trick. Frodo is going to play the 5 of rings, and he's going to then win that trick because it was led off with a 3 of rings, so rings are the suit. So he has 2 of the 4 rings he needs, so let's just keep those face up to remind me. Keep them like so, next to Frodo. And then we'll deal out new cards to everyone. A 4, a 1, a 6 of hills, and an 8 of mountains, which means Frodo is now going to lead the next trick. He is going to hang on to this 1 ring until we get the 4 of rings show up. So let's set up someone else for success. We're going to play the mountain over here, which means Bilbo must play this 3. Pippin, again, has the chance to get rid of a high card. And then Gandalf is going to play the 8 of mountains, winning the trick. So we'll take those, give them to Gandalf, deal out new cards to everyone. Gandalf now has the 4 of rings. And you'll see we just dealt out the last card. So we've now gone through the entire deck, which means these are the cards that we have left to complete the game. So Bilbo has finished his win condition. So what we can do is we can take one of these little tokens and we can place it on the Bilbo character, which reminds everyone at the table, when you're playing a multiplayer game, that Bilbo is finished. We don't have to worry about him. He's done his objective. Gandalf has done his objective because he has won a single trick. Frodo has not done his. He's only won 2 of the 4 rings he needs. Pippin has not done his objective yet because he has to win the fewest tricks. Basically, when you're playing with Pippin in the party, you have to play out until all the cards have been played, because it's possible that Pippin could win more tricks later in the game. Now, fortunately, fate has smiled upon us and given Pippin all exceptionally low cards. So I'd say we've pretty much got this in the bag. Gandalf is going to lead the next trick, and he's going to play the 4 of rings, which means Frodo will then play the 1 of rings, and he will say that he is going to trump with that. Now, he could choose not to trump if, say for instance, he had already won 4 rings, and maybe Gandalf needed to win this trick. He could choose not to trump with the 1. In this instance, he needs those 2 cards, so he is going to trump. And both of these can play any card. So Bilbo will play the 1 of hills, and Pippin will play the 4 of forests. Okay, so now Frodo wins that trick. Whoopsie. Take those, plop them over there. Frodo has completed his objective. And now I can just motor through. He won that trick, so let's play 8 of forest, 2 of forest, 1 of forest, 3 of forest. Frodo wins. Then we'll go with forest cards again. Forest, forest, not forest, not forest. And let's go not forest. Frodo wins again because he led with a forest card and it was the only forest card played. Then he'll play out the last trick. He's going to play a 5, Bilbo plays a 4, Pippin plays a 1, and Gandalf can play a 6, which means Gandalf wins the trick, which is totally fine because his win condition is win 1 or more tricks. And you'll see he has 1 card left over. That's because he got the lost card at the start of the game. When playing with multiple players, that lost card is quite a critical piece of information because it's a face-up card that everyone can see. So it's a card that everyone knows that Gandalf has from the start of the game. Now, it's possible that he could trade that away, which he would probably do if it's a card that everybody at the table knows somebody else needs. So there's a lot of that kind of non-verbal communication that happens when you're playing with multiple players. When you're playing solo, as I just did, it is much more of a logic puzzle, and you're just solving for all of the cards that you can see and the cards that might be coming, and you can do a fair amount of card counting as well. If you can remember what cards have been played, then you can keep track of how many of each suit there are and what your likelihood is of winning a certain trick. Now, that was only chapter 1. So the next step would be to go to that lovely little box, pop open that next compartment and see what's hiding in it. But I will not spoil that for you. I'll leave that for you to discover on your own should you want to play this game. So that was a fairly simple win, and I can tell you now, having played several chapters, more than several, quite a few chapters at the 4-player count, it does get progressively more tricky with each subsequent chapter. I have not played beyond this one solo, so I can't really speak to that. But I imagine, even playing solo with all the open information, it will gradually get more and more tricky to balance it out and manage to actually win each and every game. So, I will not spoil any of those further chapters for you, and I will say thank you ever so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the show. And remember to spread the joy of tabletop gaming.